Hey everybody, welcome back to the Once Ready podcast. We have Kris Nomas Thomas on the podcast. Thanks for joining us, dude. It's
Yeah,
been several
absolutely.
years since you were last on.
It has been a while. I've done a lot since then, and I'm excited to be on here and talk. I love this one-on-one thing here, so we can just go back and forth and just really talk about anything.
Yeah, well, and that's what we're going to. So let's start over because we started to go down a path of talking already before even hitting record. So I want to revisit that while it's kind of fresh. So you are now working for, and just correct me if I'm wrong, you're actually working for Air Force Recruiting Service now, right?
I am. I'm actually right now. I'm the only pararescueman in recruiting service. It's funny because years ago I was an instructor, and I guess I'm pretty motivating. People are like, "Man, you're really motivating." So there was a senior master sergeant recruiter who was sitting in the back watching this speech I was doing to some of my candidates at SWIC. And he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, you're really motivating. Do you want to be the first pararescueman to go through recruiting school and be a recruiter?" And I was like, "Sign me up." And so normally people would say, "No, that's not really this path and lane." But I've always been a believer of like, if things are coming in my life that are unexpected, why not be the yes man? And so I went through recruiting school, did pretty well. I'll tell you the story and people can relate to this. When I went through NCOA literally weeks before I went to recruiting school. And
Hmm.
I hate to say that I was gunning for Levito. I wasn't really gunning for Levito. I was just doing my thing. And then people kept coming up to me. They're like, "Dude, you're going to win. You're going to win Levito." So I was like, "Oh, that's going to look good." I'd love to make rank because the more rank you have, the more change you can make positively. And so uh, I didn't make Levito. I didn't get Levito. And, I was for sure, I had this assumed mindset that I was, boom, you're making it. And I'm biting my family out there and all this stuff. And then didn't. And that was fine. But a week later or so, I had to go to recruiting school. And so I told myself, I was like, "Man, you tried so hard." Like I was at try hard in the last course, which I hate to say. And so I said, "Hey, I'm just going to completely relax and just be myself in recruiting school." And it just happened to be that my creative side and just being relaxed actually really helped me out in recruiting school because recruiting school is not easy, guys. I'm telling you right now. I mean, you're doing multiple scenarios where you're having to be creative. You have to talk on the spot. You don't know a lot about recruiting. So you get put in these little rooms and they have an instructor come in and they are going to ask you a bunch of questions. They're going to act like an applicant. And then you have to execute as a recruiter as best as you can. And they judge you based on your attributes and how you handle situations. And I was just completely like, I'm relaxed. I'm just going to be myself and crushed recruiting school. But yeah, so then I end up being on the bag. Being on the bag means that you're recruiting. You have a goal and you have to go out there and recruit and do all the paperwork and get them to ship to basic training. A lot of operators that came into recruiting were thinking, well, I'm here as an operator. I want to be more on the side of developing people. I've been through the pipeline, this and that. And then when leadership told us like, "Hey, that's not going to happen. You're an actual recruiter and you having a beret is just probably going to help you in special warfare." And so some guys were bitter, but not me. I said, "Hey, this is a notch under the belt that I can take." And I'm sure you've had the same thing in your career where you're like, "I don't know if I want to do this, but I'm just going to step into this realm and just crush it."
I think everybody has. That's just a reality of being in the military and serving and making rank, or hey, somebody new is coming in and it's time to move you on to, develop you or you know, have you a fledgling baby bird leave the nest kind of thing to go do something else.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's funny because these things that you might be bitter at or bitter on, you tend to lose those gaps in your life. So I try to explain it like this, and I will talk a little bit later about the 3 phases in life that I really want to hit on this podcast. But if you look at yourself here, I'll just write it down. I got a little thing. Can you see this board?
Yeah.
You see that? All right. So this is, I like to write stuff, but I want you
I'm a whiteboard guy too.
I want you to look at this. And if you see, this is the person you want to be, but this is the time where you start to pick up your motivation and you say, I want to do this. And you have to, all these little tick marks, this could be 1 year. This could be, I don't know, maybe 3 years, but this is 10 years down the road of this person you keep imagining. All these tick marks, you have to live in that purpose, because if there's a block where you are bitter, you hate your job, you're negative, you're missing this block. And so to be that person, you need these things to become that person. And so that's what happens. What I see a lot is people are, they leave a job and let's say they retire and they've been in recruiting, but they haven't put in 100% into recruiting. They didn't do the time that other people are. And it's kind of like that iceberg where you see like 10%, you see it above the water and you're like, it's not that big. But then you look under the water and it's like 80% of it is underwater. And so when you leave and you retire and you go put in a resume for a job that pays $140,000 in recruiting, because that's out there right now, and they go, let me look at the resume. You didn't really win any awards. You didn't do any project management. Your resume is not that strong. And now you look in the mirror and you go, dang, I put 50% in. And really, if you just had a great attitude and understand that that moment was your purpose at that point in your life, then you can look in the mirror at the end and go, wow, that was 100% that I put in. And yes, I will get that job. So I'm ranting now.
It's not a rant, but it's reality of it is that, there's, you're talking about the iceberg meme. I guess it's not really a meme. It's kind of a motivational thing, but there's another one too that takes these very successful people and it's, whether it's folks that you see on Instagram, the folks that we all know, your Elon Musk, your Joe Rogan, your stuff like that, and all you see is the finished product now. You don't see when they started and that, spaghetti bowl of failures and successes that they all took. You're only seeing the end product. That's it. Everything. I mean, they failed hundreds and thousands of times and they succeeded in there, but they learned more from their failures than they did their actual successes.
You there? Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I'm here.
It broke off for a second. Yeah. That's the perfect time to talk about this because we're in the middle of this conversation. So what I've learned in the last how many years, I'm starting to understand that life has 3 phases. The first phase is enlightenment through suffering. Now, this phase is where you go, why me? This sucks. I can't handle this. I don't know what to do. Why me? Why is this happening to me? Everyone has those moments. And when you start to think like that and everything that's negative in your life, it just consumes you and engulfs you. You start to have the fear of suffering. You don't want to take risks because you're scared of failure or you're scared of that feeling of failure, right? And so the issue with this is to transcend through this phase, you have to suffer. Either be physically, mentally, emotionally, like it doesn't matter. And either it be in recruiting, and I was telling this yesterday, it's like you have to suffer in recruiting. Like it takes the hours of studying sales and how to communicate and how to be resourceful and all these different things. And if you're not good at them, you have to put yourself out there. So when I say suffering, I'm not talking about like dying. I'm talking about here's your comfortable level. And then anything above that, which is uncomfortable, is you relatively suffering. And so once you get rid of that suffering, that feeling of failure, and you are not afraid to suffer, that's when you can transcend through that phase. And so the next phase in life, which I would say 75, 80% of people live in right now, is enlightenment through outcome. This is the point where you understand that things are happening for a reason, but you're stuck in the point of, if I work for something, then most likely I'll have the positive outcome that I'm looking for. And so when you think of it like that, you can go, hey, you know what? I'm going to work twice a week, and I'm going to have a structured calendar to where after I put the kids to sleep from 9 to 11 p.m. at night, I'm going to work on my master's degree. If I do this twice a week, in 2.5 years, I'm going to have my master's degree. I worked for an outcome. If I want to run a 3-mile run and I'm running at like 26 minutes right now, if I just run every day, within a few weeks, I'll probably be at a 3-mile at 21 minutes. Work through outcome. Right now, I truly believe that I am living in my purpose. And purpose is the most important piece. And I think a very small percentage of people live in this, and the most successful people live in this phase. This is where you don't give a crap about anything that's negative or anything that's positive in your life. You are no longer giving any effort to the outcome. You just put in the work in the moment that you're in. And I bring God in this because I'm a big believer, but I think that big, significant things that happen in your life, God puts this desire in your heart, and he's not going to give me anything that I can't handle. He's just not. So the negative, the bad things that happen in your life, those are stepping stones to eventually get the goal or the desire that God has put in your heart that you ultimately want to be. And so when you forget about the outcome, you're living in purpose. And at that point, you wake up and you're like, whatever, bring whatever may, do it. I'm cool with that. And I'm going to learn from it. It's a learning mindset. And so that's really changed my life. I have honestly, what's the saying of where you grow where you're planted? I guess that's it.
Oh, that's probably it, but I don't know.
Probably it, right? You grow where you're planted. There you go. That's it. And it kind of coincides with what my wife always says. She's like, you got to stop worrying about the grass on the greener, or the grass is greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. And that's kind of where you
now that exactly.
And so I encourage everyone out there that's listening to live in your purpose. Understand that everything happens for a reason, and it's going to build the character, the attributes for you to reach that goal that you are ultimately trying to reach.
Well, dude, let me ask you then. So how much of that kind of not worrying and, I'll handle things when they happen, not having the worry, anxiety about it. How much of that do you think is, due to your religion, or because you experience stress inoculation through the pipeline, through combat deployments and training, extreme training environments and stuff like that? Or is it kind of a mixture of both?
Well, that kind of comes back to that 3 phases. I had put myself through that phase of suffering. And so, like I said, it builds that character. And those are moments that I was meant to have to build the person I am now. And if you haven't gone through that phase, you have to put yourself through that phase. So you have that stress inoculation. You have the ability to handle things in a stressful situation. Now I suffered a little bit more, and I'll be very honest with everyone. When I went through Indoc, I went through 3 teams. People don't know that about me, but I went through 3 teams, and it ripped the soul out of my butt. I mean, I was broke, emotionally and physically. And then throughout the pipeline, I had so many failures. And so you would think coming through Indoc, you'd be this super confident guy. Yeah, sure, I was confident in different things, but now your standard's higher. So before, that was a goal that I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to reach that. Now I'm at that goal. Now your standard has to go a little bit higher, so it puts a little bit more stress on you. And we all know, going through the pipeline, every day was an evaluation. There wasn't a day where you're like, I might get kicked out. You know what I mean?
Every
So
single day. It wasn't just on eval days. It was every single day.
every day. So yeah, Indoc was tough. I don't know if I've ever told the story about how I got into pararescue. Did I do that last time? I can't remember.
Man, that was like 4 years ago. So let's
Yeah,
rehash it.
let's rehash it. So again, I'm going to be very open on here. I'm not afraid. That's one thing I've always had a fear in the last few years. I think everyone kind of has this fear, especially in this realm of special operations. We have this, it's like a brotherhood. Like it's almost like our own, what's the word I can use? I feel like pararescue is my identity,
Oh yeah.
right? Combat control is your identity. Special warfare is our identity. And sometimes we're afraid to break out of that because we're afraid of what our own teammates will think of us. And I think you're probably living that a little bit. I'm sure you are. I'm living
Yeah.
that a little bit. Yeah. And that's tough to do. But in the end, what's better for you? What's better for your family? What are you trying to do to grow as a human? And really only 20 years of your life might be, or a little bit more in special operations. You're going to have friendships and relationships, but most of them are going to dissipate. So I'm starting to reach out past this identity of just being a PJ. And that's been really tough for me. But from the very beginning, I was rebellious. My dad was extremely structured. He was in the military. You would think he was an Army Marine, but he was Air Force. But if you look back at his life, he was structured by his father. They lived in trailers their whole life. They were poor. They were stressed out. You know, when you don't have a lot of money, it just brings so much stress on your family. You're constantly in the phase of like the mentality of, like I'm stressed out, and that brings heat on your family and everyone around you. Right. And so I was introduced to that as from my dad. And so I did not want to be around him most of the time when I was younger. I just wanted to hang out with my friends. I hung out with the wrong crew. And I always talk about this because everyone has that voice in the back of your head where you want to do something more than the current situation you're in. And sometimes your current situation is really bad. In my case, I was hanging out with a crew where we got in fights. We were smoking pot. We were doing stupid stuff, vandalizing, mailboxes, driving, just being stupid as a teenager. And I believe that this group was all I had. And we call that the echo chamber, where you believe that this circle that you're in is all you have. And these are the only people that are going to love you. And there's really no way out. So you hang out with this crew every day. And if you hang out with chickens, you become a chicken. If you hang out with eagles, you become an eagle. It is what it is. So I move out at 16. I think I might have just turned 17. My dad pretty much kicked me out. I was ready to move out. And next thing you know, and I'm living couch to couch. I was pretty much homeless for a long time. I was trying to live with people and live in their rooms and pay rent, but I couldn't make rent because I had no structure in the financial realm. I just didn't know what I was doing. I was this lost soul. And so that was for almost 4 or 5 years that I was going back and forth, couch to couch. I was sleeping in my car sometimes. And that is the beginning of really suffering in my life. And I just constantly was engulfed in this mindset, and I couldn't get out. I was like almost in what's that Creed song where my own prison?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That was me. I was in my own prison. I could not get out. And so, my mom, she was a saint. My mom's like 4'11", maybe a little taller, maybe not. I don't know. And she's just super nice. Super, super nice. She was from Masbate, which was a very ghetto area in the Philippines in one of the provinces. She lived in a stilt wooden shack on the water. It was just one room. It wasn't like you have separate rooms. They didn't have mirrors. And her mother died when she was born. She didn't have a father. She didn't have a grandfather. And she was raised by her grandmother. And from 60, she lived a rough life. When she was 6 years old, all the way until she met my dad at like 20, she worked in a fish market. So every day she'd walk miles to this fish market and she would work like child labor all the way until she hit a certain age. And so growing up, she didn't understand, and she still doesn't understand how people in America don't see the opportunities that they have. In America, we have the opportunity, no matter who you are, to just do whatever you want. And so she just couldn't understand how I was going down this path. And she used to call me and she'd be like, Christopher, please come home. Please come home. She would be crying on the phone. I know, right? You started laughing right when I said crying on the phone. You're like, oh, that's not so bad. But yeah, she would call and she would cry on the phone. She would just want me to come home. She'd always say, Christopher, you need to join the military. You need to join the military, because she knew, and it's funny in society, and you've worked with recruiting as well. One of the things that applicants or future applicants say in just society right now, in that age of 16 to 25, the military is my last resort. And I always was like, it's mind boggling in a sense, right? Like it's just mind boggling, because you're telling me you'd rather work at Whataburger for whatever how many years than go get a trade, get free dorm, free schooling, free BAH, travel the world, meet other people with like-minded personality. Like, I could just go down this list of amazing things that the military does, especially the lifestyle of the Air Force. And it's just mind-boggling how they are in that self-imprisonment, and they just can't get out of it.
Well, that's kind of what, and I know that when recruiting, they're selling, like, regardless of the service, recruiters are selling, oftentimes they sell bonuses, signing bonuses. Hey, you can go do this experience, this job, this trade, or whatever. But, in your example, or like, I remember when I was, doing a little bit of work with, Cameron Spencer, he was the special operations recruiter down in Tampa, Florida. Like, he had a guy that was homeless, living under a bridge, and he would show up to development sessions and stuff like that. And it was just super humbling for me, because what they're really offering, and I'm speaking for recruiters now, this is just the way that I view it, is you're selling a life. That's what you're doing. So using your chart that you had just put up there, here's your start point, here's your end point where you want to be, like, somewhere in that, depending on how the length of those tick marks, right? That could be just a 6-year stint in the military. And that's all you need. Nobody's saying you got to do 20 years. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do 25 years, right? You don't have to come in when you're 17, 18. You could come in when you're 25, 30. But you're offering a life of, you nailed it. You learn a skill. You learn a couple different ones. There are people that have 4 or 5 different careers within the Air Force because they go from one job to the other. You're selling a group of like-minded individuals that are wanting to serve. Now, not everybody in the military, believe it or not, I'm not telling you this, telling everybody else that's listening, is that not everybody's down for deploying. That's not their jam. They're joining for benefits, bonuses, to get out of a bad situation. Whereas, people like me and you, it's like, dude, we want to be the dude that is called on the mission. When something drops, when something's going down, we want to be the one that's called. We want to be in there. It's a little bit of, FOMO, of the mission, right? But recruiters are selling a life, and that's what they're offering you. And I think you could ask people that have been in for a while, where would you see yourself if you hadn't joined right now? You're not living in Las Vegas. You're not living at Rota, Spain. You're not hanging out at Stuttgart, Germany. Like, dude,
yeah, going from train to train to all these different countries and experience it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely, it's funny you say this, because in a lot of my speeches, I do say that. I'm not going to cuss on here just because it goes out, but I say, I'm like, we're not selling freaking ShamWows. We're selling life. Like, we are, you know what I mean? We're not selling the My Pillows or whatever those things are. We are selling life. You can take someone's life that is in shambles, and then in 4 years, you see them down the road or at a BX, and they are sharp as a nail, and you're going, holy cow. What, just like you said, what would you be doing if you didn't join the military? I can tell you right now, everyone in high school thought I was either going to be dead or going to jail. Because with my story before, my best friend died of a drug overdose when I was in free fall. I got a call in free fall school saying that, hey, Derek died. He overdosed on Xanax. And that's one thing that I luckily never got into, was pills and things like that. But if I did, there's no way I would have joined.
Yeah.
And so, it's just crazy. But I'll tell you the rest of that story though. So my mom calls me and she's like, you need to join the military. And my dad's in the background is like, you need to get your butt home. You need to join the military. And so I had this, like, I didn't really want to talk to my dad that much at that time. I had put this wall up, and so I fold. My mom says, hey, I'm going to make you chicken adobo, which is my favorite food, which is now my daughter's favorite food that I cook for her. And so I go to my parents' house. It's on a Sunday, and I'm an hour late as usual. And so back then I had no tardiness. Like, I was just straight.
No concept of time.
Yeah, no concept of time. So I show up, I go in the kitchen, my dad's sitting at the table. I'm sitting at the table with my mom. My mom's crying, not because of anything else, but because I was late. She thought I was a no-show. And so I don't even want to make eye contact with my dad. And my dad's like, tomorrow you have a meeting at 9 a.m. with Chief Kostranik. And Chief Kostranik was the chief at the time at Patrick Air Force Base, which he's now a developer down in Florida and so on. Great guy. And so he goes, you know what a pararescueman is? No, I don't. And at that point, I didn't want to join the military. I just didn't. But I was at the point in my life where this was my last resort. It legit was my last resort. And so my dad goes to his room. I look at my mom because I can confide in her. And I said, do you mind if I stay here? Because I didn't have a car. I walked to my house. People used to make fun of me. They'd be like, oh yeah, Kris is driving a Lexus. He's driving a Chevrolet. Like, I just didn't.
I've never heard of that.
Great scrub bum. It's embarrassing now. And so I go to my room, and my room had been changed into a guest room. And so I had dirty clothes on. Like, I just was living that life. And I remember opening the closet, and I was hoping to find a shirt or something like that I can wear. My mom had bought an outfit for this occasion, and she bought it months ago that would fit me now, which told me that she had been dreaming about this, and she had been really worried and stressed out. Like, now that I have kids, I couldn't imagine my son being in this realm that I was in, not knowing what he was doing. It's like emotionally draining to think about that. And it's really sad. So I remember that, and it might have changed my motive to say, yeah, I guess this is it. Like, I need to go do this. So I wake up the next morning, I sit in the car with my dad. It's silent. And we drive the 10 miles to Patrick Air Force Base, and we show up, and Chief Kostranik's coming out of the unit. You know, they have this gate, they open the gate, and Chief's like, hey, Thomas. And he's talking to my dad. And so he shakes my hand. He goes, is this your son? And keep in mind, I had bags under my eyes. I had this slouch on my shoulders, tail between my legs, completely out of shape. And I just looked like a bag of freaking turds. And so he shakes my hand, and he turns around and he goes, hey, get over here. And this dude runs up. He's in the pipeline. He's on green team. He runs up. He snaps to attention. And he's like, oh yeah, Chief, just looking forward. And this guy is standing over me. And I look up and I'm like, holy cow. Like, who is this guy? And he looks at him. He goes, yeah, hey, this is Kris. Maybe he wants to be a PJ. And he kind of gave that, now that I know Chief Kostranik versus who he knows who I am now versus where I was, he had the sound in his voice was like, this guy has zero chance, but he's here to just walk around the unit. And I'll never forget that, because I'm already only 5'5", but I felt like I was 1 foot at that point. And this guy's standing over me, and just try to picture this. He's 6'1", 6'2", blonde, blue eyes. He has his shirt off, It's sweaty outside in Florida, and he's got straight like a 10-pack. Like, I'm at the point where I would think that his thighs had abs. Like, that's how, shredded this guy was. And he was like, say what's up. So he looks down at me. He's like, what's up? And I go, I don't know. Who am I? And he just kind of just belittled me with his energy and his aura. Right. And so he goes back. He's like, get out of here. So then I look at Chief and I'm like, hey, how old is that guy? And I'm 21 at this point. And he slaps me right in the back. Boom. And he goes, he's your age. Come on, follow me. And that was the moment where everything changed. And I always talk about these moments of gene expression, the spark of genetic expression that happens in your body. And some people will get it from watching a YouTube video. You might get it from flying as a civilian, as a kid on a C-130, watching someone jump out of an airplane. And you're like, holy cow, that's great. And that changed your whole perspective on things and your mindset of what you want to do. And it kind of sparks this like down to the cellular level of who you are. And that was the moment for me, because I didn't want to join the military to be patriotic. I did not want to join the military to be a PJ. I wanted to join to be that dude. Mm-hmm. That was my fire. That was my spark. So we go in the unit and we look around. People are, getting ready for deployment. They're doing their pre-deployment stuff. Guys got parachutes on. They're working on Zodiacs. Guys are out on the jet skis training. I was like, who are these guys? And they were all around my age. And so we leave the unit. I get in my dad's truck. I'm sitting there looking through the windshield, and he knows me. He looks over and he goes, when do we start training? And I said, right now. I got out and I ran 10 miles home. I threw up multiple times. For the next 6 to 8 weeks, I was absolutely obsessed with being that guy. People don't believe this, but I'm telling you the truth. I could not swim one lap. I was so obsessed that I would go online and watch Michael Phelps over and over on an underwater cam that like kind of showed him swimming across. And I would just study the way he moved. And then I'd go online and I'd read, how do you swim? And it would say, okay, you're going to go up as a zipper effect. You're going to glide across the water and you're going to pull a medicine ball past your hip. And then you're going to switch. When you answer, you're just going to answer the phone, make sure your lips out of the water, stay in a line in this axis. And I would go to my bed at night after I would train because I couldn't do 1 or 2 laps at first. Keep in mind, I was completely out of shape, and I would visualize. I would visualize myself doing these things. And I want you guys to really listen to what I'm about to say, because this is true. There was a study a long time ago. The scientists had put these nodes on this guy's head, and all he wanted him to do was imagine throwing a baseball into a catcher's mitt. And for the first day, he couldn't even see the baseball. He couldn't see the catcher. Second day, he saw the baseball. By the 5th day, he could smell popcorn in the stands, hear people laughing and chattering. He could see stitching on the gloves. He could feel the dust and the feeling in his cleats. He could feel everything. And all these nodes were sparking off in his head. There were certain ones that were sparking. So then they surprised him and said, hey, on Monday, you're going to go to this baseball game and you're going to throw the pitch, the first pitch, the opening pitch. And everything that he was imagining was happening. And so they had these nodes on his head. He throws this baseball and they compare the nodes that were going off when he was imagining and visualizing versus actually doing it physically. And there was absolutely no difference. 0% difference in imagining it and actually physically doing it. And so that tells me that when you visualize something, that you're connecting your mind and body while just visualizing. And so I did that every single day. After 6 weeks or so, I could swim a 7 to 7:30 minute 500.
Dude, that's cruising.
So, when people say like, I've been working this for 6 months to a year, I'm like, either you don't want it or you're not doing the things that you need to do to get where you're at. And that's studying and that's putting in the extra time. But anyways, I went to Indoc and then I ended up making it. We had 133 guys in my class. 13 of us graduated, and I think maybe 5 to 7 guys. I think it was 5 that actually put our beret on. And so once you get through your selection course, it's not done. And it's crazy because I look at my graduation class and there's only a few of us left that are still in. Everyone kind of branches out and do their own thing. And that's the greatest thing about special operations, and I'm sure you can agree, is it's not about the job. It's like, oh, I'm a medic, so when I get out, I can be a paramedic. Oh, I skydive, so I can go be an instructor in skydiving. What our selection courses do not only builds confidence, but it restructures your brain waves and the connections to make you believe that you have the capability of doing anything you put your mind to. There's not one thing I know right now. If someone says, hey, can you do this? I say, yes, I know I can do it. And now might have to do some things to get there, but yes, I know I can do it. Me, before I joined, you asked me that, I would automatically just say, no, probably not. No, I don't think so. That's a huge significant difference.
Oh yeah, dude, I love that story. I don't know that you did. I don't know that you said that last time you were on, but that's fantastic. Talk about the moment in time, a turning point in your life. Like somebody that, do you even know who that candidate was?
I do. I'm not going to say his name.
Okay. But
you know,
but I mean, like, did he, oh, I know him too.
You know him too. He ended up going to our clandestine unit and did great stuff. So it just kind of set that picture. He looked like Brad Pitt and Troy. And I was like, I will do anything to be that guy. And that's kind of the fire that drove me through Indoc. That and proving to my dad that I can do something. Because for the longest time, I was just failing over and over and over. And not only did I believe that I was a loser and I wasn't smart and I didn't have any drive, when you put that and exude that energy to everyone else, people believe that for you as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's kind of one of the, like, and this is not for everybody for sure, but I'm kind of the belief that we start talking about accountability, right? And, you know, I think accountability or self-accountability is something that you probably learn. It's not something that's inherent. You know, we learn to hold ourselves accountable, but if you haven't learned how to do that yet, which, you know, a lot of our younger folks haven't that have joined, then you almost kind of tell everybody that, hey, I'm going to go do this. And the people that truly care about what you're doing, or even the people that want to see you fail, will constantly bring it up and go, are you training? Did you make it yet? Have you, you know, and in a way, maybe it's a false accountability, but it's still something to hold yourself accountable for until you're able to develop that self accountability. So I'm a fan of telling everybody and then having them call me out on it.
I'm 100% on this. When I have things that I want to do, I'll tell people. And you're right. People keep you accountable. The haters going to hate. It is what it is. The people that love you, they believe in you. And that belief, not only in yourself, but from other people, drives you to get up earlier and do things like that. And no, I 100% agree. And I think even as a person that is successful, I think it's our duty to keep other people accountable too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, even if they join the military, even if you're a PJ, I still don't think that you've grown to the capability that you can be. And so one thing that's really hard in recruiting, or not recruiting, but in pararescue, is that rank structure is there, but we go on missions with people who are outranking us, people below ranking us, and we're doing the same job. So you start to laterally lead in a sense, especially in our career field. Like a lot of them aren't 18. You might get a guy, for example, the guys I graduated, they all had degrees. They left being an engineer. They left being whatever on the stock market up in New York. And they come into pararescue just to be a PJ. So you might be a staff sergeant and they come in and they're an A1C. But for me to treat them as an A1C in all areas is just wrong as a leader. You need to almost like laterally, of course, if they're the same rank, but giving them the confidence that what they're saying is valid, and I'm big on this, especially in recruiting. Like, you could be a master sergeant, senior master sergeant, chief, and these chiefs are reaching out to the senior airmen, to the staff sergeant, and say, do you guys have any ideas? And you might get a guy who did sales for 10 years before he joined. And he's like, yeah, why don't we try this? And they're like, let's do it. And the next thing you know, there's a CPI and everyone's just freaking jobbing out and doing what they have to do to make that happen. So, keeping each other accountable at all times. And, there's a lot to learn about leadership. I believe a good leader is, he knows the way, he goes the way, and he shows the way. If you can do those things as a leader, I think you're going to be successful, because you don't want to be the guy that tells you to do something and then you can't do it yourself.
Yep.
And that's very hard. The higher rank you get, it is a lot more work, because there's other things you have to look out for yourself in that sense. You can't be that guy. And, leadership's interesting, and there's so many different personalities. You have to adapt to different personalities. You have to see if they are, are they a go-getter, or are they stoic? Are they calm? Like, all these different things. And one thing I learned about, and now that as a leader, as a master sergeant, there's people that are under me and have been under me. I've learned that if you're going to, and I think I learned this from JSAL, to be honest, at the college JSAL, if you're going to give someone criticism, especially harsh criticism, you should at least have 3 to 5 different things that they're doing right. You don't want to leave that conversation like, hey, you're a dirtbag, go do your job. Because then they have zero confidence in themselves. But you say, hey, look, you're screwing
really
up on
setting
this.
them up for success there.
Hey, you screwed up on this one thing. I'm going to give you the right path, and I'm going to give you the tools and resources to become better. I'm going to ask of you a lot to make this area in your life better. But man, you've been really doing good on these things. And I'm really happy for you. I'm glad that you're doing that. Keep doing that, but let's try to work on that. That conversation and that person's performance after that conversation will be 50-fold compared to you just crushing them because you have rank on you and you just want to be that guy. That's huge to me when it comes to leadership. So,
yeah, well, I think setting and communicating legitimate expectations up front, and then providing feedback. And, feedback and expectations may sound daunting, but it could be a 5-minute conversation like, all right, look, dude, here's what we're going to need from you sitting in this position for the next 6 months. This is what I'm like. Hey, this isn't going to be fun. Or maybe, hey, dude, you're about to have fun for the next 6 months. Just realize that this isn't the rest of the Air Force, or this isn't your rest of your time here. So it's just setting simple expectations and then providing feedback. If somebody, like, I equate it to it, and you and I have definitely have it, because, there's plenty of people, there's going away gifts, right? Or lunch or something like that. And you end up ponying up money for somebody, or you end up going and buying the gift, and inevitably you don't get made whole. You don't get all your money back, right? And it's not necessarily because somebody's ducking you. It's just people have got a lot of stuff going on and they forget that they owe you $50, And if it were me, like, dude, tell me I owe you. It's not that I'm ducking you. It's just, dude, I've forgotten. Like, tell me I owe you $50. If somebody was out there and I owed money to, and they didn't bother telling me, I'd feel terrible. Terrible. It's just like
every time they walk past you, they're like,
there's like that. I'm using the money situation because most people can relate to that. But if somebody's doing something that is bothering you, or you've got to come up and clean up their mess afterwards, it is so much better for you and them to just go, hey, this little piece right here, you're doing great, but I need you to change this little thing so that I don't have to keep cleaning up the mess after you, or something like that. That's so much better. And maybe they just don't even realize it. You got to give feedback.
Yeah. That what you just said is huge. Is a lot of people don't realize their blind spots.
Yeah.
You could be you could be doing something that you've been doing every day for years, and people talk about it behind your back and you didn't even know. And so that lateral leading and being brave enough to say, hey, look, guys, if we want to be the most well-oiled machine, we need to fix these things as a whole so our relationships are better. You know, when your relationships are good and you are willing to do anything for your brother before yourself, that's selflessness. That's when the team starts working. But if you're having these feuds and you people don't like each other because you're not opening up to each other, like, we have to understand that, especially in pararescue, combat control, we work in small teams. And if your team is not well oiled and you're not hanging out on the weekends, you're not doing barbecues, you don't know each other's wife's names and your kids' names, that's a fault on your team, because now you're going overseas, you have MVGs on, you skydived in, you're in the middle of a compound and wherever, and you expect to have the trust on the ground at that moment, but yet you didn't have the trust back at the team. It doesn't just change like that. It's not a real thing. And that's what I loved about Patrick Air Force Base, is that we had a small unit, but we were best friends. We were like brothers. We knew each other. Yeah, sometimes we wanted to go out back and punch each other in the throat, but that was because we were open to each other.
Yep.
You know, that's a good thing. And so 100%. Tell your teammates their blind spots. And if you had that blind spot before, help them out. You know, say, hey, this is what I did to make better.
And you know, sometimes their blind spots, they can only correct them so much. So that's where the whole strength of a team comes in is, you know, Kris, your blind spots, I may have strengths in that area and be able to kind of cover for you a bit, just like my blind spots, or, you know, blind spots, weaknesses, or whatever. I'm just not that strong in whatever. You're potentially, or somebody else is able to cover that for me. That's the whole part of it. And you know, you can see dysfunctional teams, whether it's a 3-person team or a, 14-person team. You can see the dysfunctionality in it. And it's because of lack of communication, lack of honesty, you know, and that honesty comes from trust and me being able to trust you to say, listen, dude, you're missing the mark on this. And I'm just telling you right now so that we can grow from it and continue on. And I'm telling you because, one, I care about the mission, and because I love you enough and I care enough about you to actually tell you that.
Oh, 100%. And sometimes that conversation is tough because, one, you don't want him to not like you as a leader. And then at the same time, like, he might get defensive, but I'd say 90% of the time or even more, that conversation does fix it. It really does. And when I first got into this last job, you know, I was new, my boss was new, and we had some disagreements, and it was almost like the elephant in the room on certain things. And then one day we sat down for about an hour and we talked, and we realized that we just didn't understand each other. And so when we did that, holy cow, did it blossom. I mean, and now our relationship's amazing. He can say, hey, I understand where you're coming from. He lets me be creative, lets me go and hit the marks that I need to hit. And my relationship with him is way better too. And so it's been great. I think honestly, he is the best leader I've worked for in my entire career. He just,
dude, that's awesome.
Right away. Yeah, it's been great. And I've learned a lot from him. And so, yeah, that one conversation changed everything. And so if you're having that out there, it's wild. If you guys are in the military and you're listening to this and you're having that problem, muster up the strength to just go have that conversation, either be at lunch or be in the office, and you'd be surprised. So
it can be scary to kind of do it first, because you're like, oh no, how's it going to go? And you're going through all these scenarios and conversations in your head. And then once you actually sit and do it, you're like, oh, wow, that I feel so much better afterwards.
10 pounds lighter.
Yeah. You've been working on something on Instagram. I don't want to say that it's new because it's not new. You've had it for a while, but Guardian Grit, right?
Guardian Grit. Yeah. You know, I wanted to put my name out there, but at the same time, I wanted to keep it broad. I put out a couple of videos. I put a video out, I think a couple of weeks ago. I got like 70,000 plus views on it. And I just completely surprised me. And so I understand that putting good content out does help, but I really just want to get the name out there. I have some plans for myself when I get out of the military, things I'm working on, writing a book. That's not specifically to pararescue, but just going from the lowest point of my life to where I am now and how to get there. It's going to be, it might take a couple of years, this and that. And like I said, but about telling people, I'm not stressing out. I'm not telling the name of the book, but it's something I'm working on. And I've been wanting to do this for 10 years. I think I started writing this book so many years ago, just little jotting down. And I think I have a story that can relate to people and to understand that you are 100% capable of anything you want to do. You might believe that you're this person, but you're really this person. And I love how there was a thing that I watched with David Goggins. He said that he went to heaven, and he was, when he died, he was that 300-pound cockroach sprayer. He goes to heaven, and God's like, he shows him this list of all these things, from being an author to running 240 miles and 300 miles and doing and helping millions of people and giving to charity, just all these great things that he's done. And he goes, "Who's that?" And God's like, "This is who you could have been. But because you don't have you didn't want to break through that mental prison that you had, that's why you're not that person." And so I love that, because I think everyone has these things that they can't overcome, or they feel like they can't. And that just comes into that first phase of the fear of suffering and the fear of doing something hard because of the way you're going to feel. And once you break through that, and this is one thing I wanted to put out on my channel, but when you're trying to reach a goal, the goal could be 2-3 years away from you. And we're not expecting you to change overnight. If you want to run a 100-miler, if you want to get your education, if you want to be a PJ, if you just want to lose 50 pounds, if you're overweight right now, people get in these holes. Everyone has their vices. People look at pornography. That's just as bad as being gluttonous. You know what I mean? Everyone has their levels of sins and whatever. But what I would say is start small. Let's say you don't work out at all, but you keep picturing yourself to be this guy with a six-pack, and you want to lose weight, and you hate the way you look at yourself in the mirror. Just say, hey, Monday through Friday, I'm going to do 25 to 50 push-ups. That's it. Monday, you do 50 push-ups all the way to Friday. On Saturday morning, you go, hold on, let me self-analyze. I went from never doing push-ups to doing 5 days in a row of 50 push-ups. That builds confidence. And confidence is what gets you up in the morning to go do something great. And so Saturday hits and you go, okay, Monday, I'm going to do 100 push-ups, or I'm going to eat one less meal. And so when people go cold turkey, that's when they come back in a couple of weeks and just go nuts on whatever they were doing before. And you have to realize that about yourself, analyze yourself, that you're not really that much different from anyone else. And I always say this, smart people learn from their mistakes, but a genius learns from others. That is, take it to heart, because you've seen so many thousands and thousands of people fail by just going cold turkey. I'm sure there are a percentage of people that can, but why not just start small? Build the confidence in yourself to where a 10-mile run no longer is hard. My first 10-mile run was an Indoc when I graduated. And then, when I was running a lot in the last few years, 10 miles was like a warm up. I would do 10 miles and I'd be like, well, I might as well do a half marathon. And if you would ask me to do that before, you know what I mean? It was like, I would say the first time I ran 10 miles when I got out of my dad's truck, but I wouldn't say I ran the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
no, there was some puking in there.
Yeah.
I do like, right.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, that confidence level, like I'm not in half marathon shape right now, but you know what? I pound of water real quick, put the shoes on, and I can go get through a half marathon without training. It's just, I know I can it'll hurt, it won't be fast and it'll hurt,
suck.
but I know I can get through it. Like, it's not a big deal, you know? It's just that confidence level and that believing in yourself. But yeah, go ahead.
No, just on this podcast, I just would love to talk about kind of our current situation. And I'm not trying to be political. This is nothing that is going to feud anyone from Democrats or Republicans. I really just love to paint the picture of just our military. And can you see me right now?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Gotcha. I don't know if anyone, especially people in the Air Force, we have the brown book and we have the blue book, right? And people don't understand that we have the purple book. So the purple book is actually our joint team, our joint forces that we have and how we work with other forces. And if you look at the number one thing we're trying to do right now, and we've been trying to do for years, is to deter war. I'll start off with that. Our number one priority is to not go to war. And if we go to war with China or even Russia, you got to understand that this is going to be the deadliest war we have ever seen. And when I talk about recruiting, I don't really specifically talk about special warfare. And we could probably talk about how every job falls into the 5 core functions in the Air Force, which is ISR. You have, rapid global mobility, global strike, command and control. You have air superiority, all these different things that each job falls into. But if we go to war with China, it's going to be the largest, most deadliest war we've ever seen. And like I said before, when I talk about recruiting, we have to think big picture. We need numbers in the military to show force, which will then create deterrence from our other countries. If they go, wow, look at America, look what they have, look at all the missiles they have, look at all the people they have in different jobs. They've ranked up thousands in the last couple of years, and China's doing that right now.
Mm-hmm.
They are preparing for whatever is going to happen in the next 5-10 years. And we have to understand as recruiters that we are recruiting not only the people that are going to protect our homeland, but it's going to protect a lot more. And I like to say it like this. If we go to war with China, you got to think about China's crude oil that they've bought in the last, whatever, how many years, 2 years, significant. I mean, it was like a 20 to 40% increase. They bought 384,000 acres of land in America.
Mm-hmm.
If
right around bases,
every shirt that we make, every shirt that you see, you pull the tag out, it's made in China. So you start to think about the security we have, the homeland security, because that's one thing we need to protect the homeland. We will start to lose border security. And if you look at border security right now, the FBI's number one priority is economic espionage. We have caught multiple people coming across the border that aren't searching for a better place to live. They are searching for cyber. They are stealing these files and to see what we're doing so they can go back and prepare more to be against us. Border security, water security, food security, land security. I'm telling you, if we get these things stripped from us, things that we take for granted, we will fall apart. Mm-hmm. And there are certain people that are prepared. You look at these billionaires, they're like, oh, that's weird. All the billionaires in the world are building these bunkers and all this. Why are they doing that? But, obviously I don't know what they're preparing for, but there are things that we need to look at the bigger picture of what United States is going to look like in 100 years. Is it going to look like this if we go to war with China? Probably not. A lot of key personnel, a lot of families will be destroyed, a lot of people will die, and it will change the mindset of America. Right now, we are the superpower. We've been the superpower for a long time, but China and Russia want that spot. And Putin and North Korea, they just met up, I think, in the last week, shaking hands, giving each other hugs. there's a lot of things that are going on that we're not seeing as society because, in my opinion, we're just so like on our phones and we're just so busy with our lives. And so I encourage our recruiters to look at the bigger picture and say, this is our opportunity to create deterrence in America, to provide that force that we need in case we have to go to war. And so we need help from America. I'm not going to say you're going to war. I'm not saying you're going to go shoot people and be on the battlefield. There's plenty of jobs that don't go to war. But we need you right now in America to step up and protect your freedom. That's really what it comes down to. Your ability to go to the store and buy whatever you want, to wake up and put water on your face, to go buy a house, even though it's at 7% interest right now, all these different things, like that's freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of, I mean, we can go down that hole, which I won't on here, but people can do and say whatever they want right now.
Yep.
And if we lose the war and China takes over America in I don't know how many years, maybe they do, maybe they don't, you won't have that. And it's going to be stripped from us all because of the decisions we're making currently. And that is, we need people, we need your help. And think about the freedoms you have, because you can be a direct correlation to be that brick in the wall that keeps people out that are dangerous and that are evil. And these are state actors, people. We're not fighting non-state actors. These people are equipped with everything we have and more. It's not going to be the war that we went to Afghanistan with, you know, and when you have people that are evil and they just want to, you know, take over. I would always say this. I would say the best weapon against evil people and people that do bad things would be a good person who can do bad things better. And that's America. So
yeah, I agree with you on all of those aspects. And I'd extend it to, you know, these businesses. We've gotten in a habit of, it's all about me. Like, how can I have the largest bank account? How can I increase my bank account? Which, hey, yeah, I got it. I want to have a good sized bank account too, but I'm not willing to put that at risk. The idea of America and the idea of the freedom, you know, First Amendment, Second Amendment, and so on. I'm not willing to line my bank account and screw over all that stuff and turn my back on all that to include the American people. And that's part of it. Like, people don't realize how much a lot of these companies absolutely fleece the government. And part of it is for sure the way that our military acquisition and contracting is set up. It is set up to do that. So you know, I don't blame all the companies that are doing it, you know, especially the small businesses that, you know, here at Nellis, you know, we have quite a few local businesses that we use for things, you know, whether it's construction or, you know, just normal office jobs and stuff like that. So we try and support small business, but you know, some of these bigger ones, and I won't name it because the last thing I want is a lawsuit, but you know, when they charge us an insane amount for an airplane or a munition, a missile or a bomb, and then it's not quite how we ordered it, or it's got a terrible maintenance rate. Like, for example, there are 2 planes that are decently new within the Air Force that have got a worse maintenance rate than our B-52s, you know, that are easily going to be flying when they're 100 years old. These are newish planes, and they have and by maintenance rate, for those out there, I mean, like, they don't get off the ground very well, or it requires a large maintenance team to get them off the ground. Whereas you have a B-52 that is flying all the time. It's just, I don't know, man. It's frustrating for me just because I want Team America to win. I don't necessarily want Team Peaches to win. I'm cool if Team America wins, Team Peaches wins. but I don't want to line my pockets and turn my back on America. I just don't.
No, I get it. And, you know, what's funny is, I don't know if maybe it was just the history of people. And obviously we've been to war and certain things, but I feel like the patriotism back in the days was a little bit more now, or I mean, more than it is now, because I feel like when you get to a certain age, you get in the military, you're fighting for not your current situation, but you're fighting for your future generations. And if we had that mindset of like, this isn't about me, what I'm doing right now is to fight for my kids. And when they're my kids, which I build through raising them and the standard and all that different jazz, then they will do the same for their kids, and they will do the same for their kids. And that creates great Americans. And it takes effort. And that's what we do as human and mankind, is to prepare our children for the next war or whatever it may be. And so as a father, I've kind of taken that role of like, it's no longer about me. Whenever I think about business and if I get money or this and that, I never think about what I want. I've already lived a fantastic life. I could die right now happy. You know, I could die right now satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything I do is for other people. And if everyone has that mentality, you know, like you said, you'd want to see Team America. Like, that's just something you're doing internally. Every day you're working for other people to make things better. And how can we, contribute to that? So we've talked about a lot. I know sometimes you see a lot of candidates come on here. I would, what do you think about talking about how to be a little bit better in water? Is that something you guys want to talk? Is that something we can talk about?
Go right into it. I was actually going to ask you what other kind of topics you wanted to hit.
Yeah. So I was, an indoc instructor at the Pararescue Schoolhouse for a few years. And then I ended up being the instructor supervisor over at the prep course. And I taught and wrote curriculum, lesson plans for WaterCon. And I would say that that's the number one SIE event. People get scared of the water. Either they quit in the water or they find out that water's next. And so they quit on that event and say, no, I just quit on the ruck. You might have just been scared that you're about to go in the water. And so when I train people, I really hit foundational level. And I think we're starting to branch out to that, to where I can't expect you to go do a 15-meter mass and snorkel or a 20-meter or do underwaters at 1:30 if you can't hold your breath for 2 to 3 minutes. We have too many guys who get in the water. They want to get at this all-star level before they're at the elementary level. And no matter what your age is, you have to understand that you're at that level. And so I encourage people, before you even get in the water, you should be doing dry land movements for 2 to 3 weeks. You watch a video on how to do an underwater, right? You're doing your underwater. You watch a video on how to do master snorkel, and you sit in your yard, or you sit in your room, and you just do master snorkel over and over to become second nature. At that point, you're also working on breath holding. And when you get in the pool with your repetitions, just like when we shoot our dry fire shooting at the berm before we even shoot, that will 100% help you when you're actually shooting on target with steel. And so you do those dry land movements, you visualize yourself, and now you can hold your breath for 3 minutes. So when you get in the water, if you feel like this is a little different from dry land, you can fix yourself underwater and feel what feels right. But if you can only hold your breath for 15, 20 seconds, by the time you try to fix it, you got to come up for air. Then you got to swim back. And then you got to wait till your heart rate goes down. And then you can try again. And you'd be surprised that the foundational work pre-pool will let you and allow you to train way more efficient when you're actually at the pool. Like, it's a time thing. And so take that to heart. Another thing I had a question was, people like, man, I suck at buddy breathing. Like, I'm always, if I get capped or this and that, I'm out of air, I start to freak out. And so I like to picture this. And I learned this from Mr. Maroney. Mr. Maroney was a indoc instructor. He was a PJ. He was insane. All right. People, you know, I remember like I had graduated and the next team came in and they were all waiting out there for welcome to indoc day. And he had the CQ, the guys on setback, play the Darth Vader song. And so he had like this hoodie on and you couldn't even see him. And he was like this. And the gate came up and it was like, and he was just standing there and it was dark. And he's like, drop. And then everyone, you know, that's how it started. But he was funny. He was witty, but man, did he crush souls. And so, yeah, so he taught me this and it kind of changed the way I looked at buddy breathing. So I'll write this here. If you see this, I love to write stuff on the board. I want you guys to imagine these are your lungs. So before you start buddy breathing, what you want to do is take a massive breath to fill all your alveoli and your bronchioli to the max. And to do that, it's called a triple chamber breath. It's where you, instead of breathing just from your chest, you're actually breathing from your stomach. You're filling your stomach, then filling your chest. And then the last bit is this. So you have air in here, you have air in your chest, and you have air in your stomach. And by the time the event's done, it's not like it's stale breath. You just have that much air. So sometimes it's so much that you have to actually let some bubbles out just to feel comfortable. But in buddy breathing, this is the trick. You're going to go out there, you're going to link up with your buddy, you're going to link arms, put the snorkel, and you're going to take a massive breath before you link up because you're going to hear the instructors link up. And so you take this full breath, but when you're actually breathing out of the snorkel and taking a breath, you only need to push air from this. And so you're only using this top area. So when you get capped, right, you only use this much. So for example, it'd be like, I take this huge breath. I'm passing the snorkel. That's it.
Quick.
If you get capped, that is enough to push the air out of the snorkel. Just that. A lot of guys, once they get that air or they get that, the chance to get their snorkel out of there, they go and they want to take this massive fresh breath. And that's when you get capped.
Yep.
And then you go bring it to the other guy and then you bring it to this guy. He's freaking out. You're freaking out. And by then you failed buddy breathing and you're lost soul and they're like swim back or line up again and you're freaking out. And so what that does is it ensures that you will always have air. And if you get capped, and you can try that, take this massive breath. This is the way to test it. Take this massive breath. And all I'm going to do is just blow out that little bit. How many times can I get capped? I could go on probably to 20 to 30 of just that. And that's all it takes. So stop pushing all that air out for this fresh breath. You're going to be fine with the stale breath for the 2 to 3 minutes that you're actually underwater or passing the snorkel. So that is a pro tip in buddy breathing.
Which is a really good tip because you do see the people that just blow everything out. And then you can see it in their eyes when it's like they get capped, as in, you know, for the folks out there taking a breath away, you know, putting your hand on top of the snorkel. Instructors have been known to do that once or twice. And the panic ensues. It's like, uh-oh, I messed up, as they're passing the snorkel off. Ooh.
Oh, 100%. I've seen people pass out, all these different things. And that's because they just have released all their air. And as an instructor, we're like sharks, you know, smelling blood. If I had taught you that secret and you keep doing the other, what's comfortable with blowing all your air out, I'll see you do that. And I'm like, cap. 100%, like I'm capping you for you learn this lesson. And then of course, like once we're done as instructors, it's our job to mentor you. And I say, hey, look, you did it again, man. Remember the chambers. Remember that you only need to do this. Let's practice this for a few seconds before you go back to the wall. And you'll see that in instructor world, or if you become an instructor, don't forget that you have instructor on the back of your of your shirt. I think people sometimes forget that. They get this like,
it's not, it doesn't say select. Yeah. It doesn't say selector. It says instructor, meaning you need to teach.
Exactly. And you're an NCO, a senior NCO, you're a mentor. And when you're teaching other people, your teammates as instructors will see the way you do that. And if you see that it's effective, they start doing the same thing. And again, that's where you get that team. Of course, there are times as instructors where you're like, hey, look, guys, we need to just crush souls right now because they need to be crushed. And so I look back at different selection courses, and there's a lot of evaluations, but what makes someone hard through the courses is not the evaluations. It's not getting the push-ups and trying to get 13 pull-ups or whatever it may be. It was the times where you just got crushed. The 508 counts to where you are literally just releasing the old shell of yourself and you go, holy cow, I just did 1,008 count bodybuilders after a 14-hour day. Yeah, I can do anything. That's what makes someone hard in our courses. And our courses have changed. You went from ANS. I really liked ANS. I thought that it was a crusher. If people think that it wasn't a freaking ball buster like that,
it was.
I was a guest instructor there for a little bit. I was like, wow, they're crushing people, but yet they're professional. They're hitting all the areas that we need. And obviously things are going to change. I think, and again, I don't know anything official, but there will be a change to the selection course. And I don't want to, you can't say the word NDOC anymore, but whatever they want to call it.
Which is why we've been saying it so much, because it just bothers people. So we've been calling it NDOC 2.0, even though it's not going to be that, but it bothers a lot of people in leadership. So guess what? When something bothers you, that means we're going to do it more.
Yeah. And the thing about either one of our selection courses that we've done the time, the professionalism, the curriculum, lesson plans, that it's going to be hard, just like we want it. And we are going to build the person that you want to be, but what our force needs. You know, we don't want you to be on the battlefield and not have a level of suffering and structure when it comes to something hard, because there are missions where you are winded and you are smoked and you're emotionally drained and you're seeing things you've never seen before, and all those things come together. And if you start to fall apart, the whole mission starts to fall apart. And that's why our standard is so high. And I put out a video, and maybe you haven't seen it, or maybe the people who are watching this haven't seen it, but the reason why we have a high standard is so we have a cohesive bond between each one of our teammates. So we can understand that we can trust each other on the battlefield and rely on each other, that we're doing the job correctly to the best of our abilities. Because mediocre people do not like high achievers, and high achievers do not like mediocre people. So when we put you through the ringer, through our selection courses, through our pipeline, through our upgrade of the unit, we understand that we have eliminated mediocre people, and we only have a team of high achievers. So when you go overseas and you're in combat, you are all on the same page. The hustle's the same, sense of urgency, the level of professionalism when it comes medically or dropping bombs. There's no worry. You understand that your teammates are doing what they have to do. That's why we have a standard. So clip that.
Dude, I already did, actually. I marked it to put that on there. So, cause I'm going to put that into a reel. And honestly, dude, I don't really know how to follow that up. Man, you were so much fun to talk to. Like, I think because now it's funny, cause I took notes, and you and I have had a very different upbringing, like not upbringing, but like, childhood experience. Right. And yet here we are on the other end of the computer, talking about things, and we can just relate. And I think that that's something that's special. And I don't think it's necessarily unique to pararescue, combat control, special reconnaissance, TAC-P, but I definitely think it is fairly unique to the special operations community. And dude, you're just a motivating dude, man. And I love it. I appreciate what you're doing. And real quick before I forget, because whenever we start talking about ANS and NDOC and NDOC 2.0 and all that kind of stuff, like I want to show some support to the instructors because they are on the tail end of just getting whipped around. And I just want to say to those folks out there, if any of them are listening, like, thanks for what you're doing because it's important. And, other people can, whether they're retired or whether they're, at other units, they'll send shade and critique your way, but you guys are doing good work out there. You really are. So keep it up.
100%. And as a former instructor, I understand how hard it is. There's a lot of stuff to learn. There's a lot of stuff to learn about yourself, how to talk to people. Being an instructor probably changed the way I am today. And I realized that I was forging our future airmen. And if you're an instructor, you're usually a staff sergeant, tech sergeant, you start to get in those ranks. And, what you say, and it's crazy because I have people who come up to me 10 years later after I've been an instructor and say, I remember something that you said to me that kind of changed my mindset and made me not want to SIE. And you're saying, wow, I had that much of an impact on someone's life who's been conditioned to think a certain way. And one conversation changed that. And so again, yes, thank you guys for putting in the work and being the forefront of our forged future special warfare guys. So
yep.
Kudos.
Absolutely. Well, dude, like I said, thanks for joining us. I always appreciate our conversations. Most of our conversations are over the phone, not being recorded. So, I'm definitely glad that, we were able to get you on, and I hope you're game for coming on again and rapping about stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully I'll come on later, but I just want to say that, keep doing you guys and live in purpose and have a blessed day.
Definitely. All right, everybody. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and then check out Kris over at, it's at Guardian Space Grit, right? There's no underscore.
There is an underscore. Guardian underscore.
There is an underscore. Okay, cool. All right. So check Kris out over there. He's putting out some good content and to help get you through the pipeline. And we're out here, dude. Thanks for joining. Later.